The first half of the season for the Skip Barber Racing Series here on iRacing was dominated by Grand Prix style circuits. The VIR Full Circuit, Road Atlanta, Suzuka, Phillip Island. And as we start off the second half of the season here, we begin, well, let's just say that it's dominated by smaller, tighter club style circuits. Here in week number 7, we're gonna kick off with the very first of these shorter layouts, and we're going back down under for this one here live from Oran Park. Don't go away. Welcome back here to RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live as coverage begins over Wednesday race nights with our 2 back-to-back races. Starting off, of course, with the Skip Barber Racing Series here from Oran Park, then a little later on with the Raven Graphics eSpeed Contender Series live from Texas. Randy Chinnet, Alvin Nieves, and Hugo Louis bringing you all the action today. And Alvin, like I said, as we just went live there, a lot of big tracks the last month or so in this series. We finally get back to something a little bit more small, a little bit more technical, and that's going to be a pretty big change-up, I think, for all these guys.
A little bit more and more technical, but definitely more suited to these cars. You know, these cars, this is the type of circuit that they like. Short, twisty, and it's all about the momentum. How these drivers can go through this track, trying to keep it all 4 wheels, trying to be as fast as possible without the help of the slipstream. Well, we are going to find out.
We raced here, of course, last season, and that was the race, Alvin. We talked about the fact that we might see a little bit of slipstreaming down that front straight, and over the course of that race, we really saw that that wasn't the case. There's not quite enough length in that front straightaway. It's about 100 yards or so too short to really get a lot of good slipstreaming done. So in order to make moves here today, you're gonna have to do it just the old-fashioned way on speed. Whoever's the quickest, I think, over a single lap is gonna be very, very comfortable here today. Right now we have Josh Anderson setting the pace, but you know, you think about that, I think people like Adecobo Lopez, Josh is definitely looking quick in qualifying right now, but I think Ade has to be the favorite for this one here today, Alvin, just for the fact that it's so difficult to make moves.
Definitely the favorite, and I do have to agree with you right there, Randy. Pole position here, that's pretty much the most important, and so far it looks like Joshua Anderson, he's got the pole position, so I think he's got the preferred start position, but never discount Adecobo Lopez. He is starting in P2, and we have seen him get some fantastic starts here in this series as well, so definitely Adecobo Lopez, do not count him out yet.
So, and as we take a look at the point standings, Adecobo Lopez has the advantage by 400 points over the second place's Tom Ward. But as these cars take the grid, we need to go down. Your starting results here for round number 7, live from Oran Park. Josh Anderson steals pole away from Adecobo Lopez. Iberica Racing Team driver been very, very strong this season. Greg Seitz and Justin Tipton. They're going to make up row number 2. Greg has had a bit of a hot streak as well. Carl Dronke and Andrew Picario will make up row 3, with Francois Bollier and Mike McCormick making up round 4. Gordon Ramsay puts in a good qualifying time of 1:14.3. Hopefully I don't have to yell a pizza-related meme on stream because of a chef-related name, and hopefully Gordon doesn't go too raw here tonight. Tyler Hervase, he will round out the top 10. Daniel Cabanillas will start 11th with Federico Montini on the outside of him. Tuan Tron and Ed Jones make up the 7th row. Christian Capanga and Lucas Loyarty make up row 8, with El Leroy Coppage rounding out the 17-car field here today. 12 turns around this Oran Park racetrack, all of it pretty much very sideways, very lefty, very righty. Not a lot of straights at this racetrack, not a lot of high-speed sectors whatsoever. Very difficult to make passes stick, even down after that long front straightaway. Getting the job done in turn 1 is very difficult. But as we begin to build, lights go green, and we are racing here from Oran Park. It's a very good jump from Adecobo Lopez, and this is what he needed to maybe be able to get the jump here and steal this first position here early. Down into corner number 1 for the first time. The number 1 machine, American Racing Team driver, who's been so dominant all year. He has the preferred line. We have a big incident in the backfield. Not sure who that is, way off in the green and black car. That is actually Gordon Ramsay, so he has indeed gone raw here today, and he has big damage. That's going to be the end of his race here at the beginning of lap number 1. Still fighting side by side a couple places up and down your field, but Alvin Adecobo Lopez gets a perfect jump, and he steals the race lead away from Josh Anderson. That's heartbreak for that 3 machine.
Not the start that Gordon Ramsay was looking for, but the start that Adecobo Lopez was looking. I said that starting in P2, that is definitely not the end of the race for him, and Adecobo Lopez, well, he just proved it. Jumping right in P1, right at turn number 1.
So entire field works themselves through the second half of the lap here. Coming up now to the final set of corners, Adecobo Lopez leads the way from Josh Anderson, then followed by the 2 teammates of Greg Seitz and Justin Tipton. They round out the top 4. They said 4-car breakaway here already as Carl Dronke in 5th. It's going to be about a 4 to 5 tenths or so disadvantage between that P number 4 and P. Actually, it's even more than that. 1.2 seconds on the racetrack separates 4th and 5th place. So a big pace disadvantage already for the back half of the field. Pretty much single file throughout the entire field into turn 1. Edward Torres, though, he's going to lose a spot to Fabrice Montini. He tries to get the undercut, hops that curb on left-hand side, will not be able to get the drive off the corner because of it, and Federico is going to defend that inside line. So now these guys work themselves through the technical bits once again. And Alvin, these top 4, they had a pretty big breakaway the start of this lap. But I was actually going to say Carl Dronke in 5th. He's done a good job to reel them back in just a little bit as they now come up, on the back side of the bridge and come to the end of lap number 2 already.
Well, and if you think Carl Dronke still has a good run, I gotta say Joshua Anderson got an even better run out of turn number 12.
Oh, Carl goes around. Sorry to interrupt here, Alvin, but we just talked about this 5th place runner, the number 8 of Carl Dronke, coming through the left-hander near the end of the lap. He got all sorts of sideways, clipped the curb, and he almost spun that car back up into traffic. He's now fallen down well outside the top 5. I believe he's going to be P number 8, and they're 2 by 2 behind him. This is Mike McCormick and Tyler Hervase. They're running right now for 8th and 9th, and just behind, Tuan Tron is dealing with Daniel Cabanillas, trying to get himself in the top 10. Into the first corner they go. Tron gets himself the 10th spot, and Mike McCormick just able to slip out in front as they're side-by-side through turn 2.
Side-by-side, and even more contact there all the way on the back on the field. But I gotta say, Joshua Anderson, yes, he lost P number 1 at the first lap, but he was able to snatch it back going into lap number 2, going into turn number 1, and he seems that he's able to defend that position really well so far from Adecobo Lopez. So really interesting what Adecobo Lopez is thinking right now. Is he trying to lay low and trying to follow Joshua Anderson and force him into a mistake, or is he gonna force the issue?
So entire field working themselves now down to the back half of this lap once again through 10 and 11. Easy flat out chicane and into turn 12. A very awkward uphill left-hander that there's about 2 or 3 different apexes you can potentially take. Thanks to Carl Dronke making that mistake, the top 4 again have themselves a little bit of breathing room. Josh Anderson looks keen on stretching the gap over Adecobo Lopez. Gap already out to 3.5 tenths of a second as they run themselves down into the first corner. We've seen this season, Alvin, Adecobo Lopez be exceptionally patient in these races. As P number 4, Justin Tipton, makes a huge mistake going into the second corner, just locked him up, broke way too late. He pushed way off into the dirt, and because of that, he's going to lose a handful of spots. He's going to drop back to at least P6 as Francois Bullion just sneaks out in front, but that's a big mistake to be making. We got another car on the back half of the lap blown up. That's still Gordon Ramsay trying to get himself back around down to pit lane.
Yeah, definitely bad luck there for Justin Tipton, trying to keep up the frenetic pace that these top 3 are doing right now. But Joshua Anderson, I gotta say, he's doing a fantastic job there trying to keep P number 1. But this also shows you, Randy, trying to get an overtake here. And we know that Adecobo Lopez, he can get it done for sure. But this track is so twisty. We know that he is faster, but trying to get around, that is one of the most difficult things that Adecobo Lopez will have to do. He will have to get a good run coming out of turn number 12 if he wants to get the race lead. It looks like he got a good run, but still Joshua Anderson keeping P number 1 at turn number 1.
So first side-by-side is Tuan Tron and Daniel Cabanales as they work themselves into the first corner. The 14 machine, Daniel, he gets the spot in the 17 machine. Slight mistake, finds himself in the dirt. Actually did a very good job to recover there, did Federico Montini, putting 2 wheels off, Alvin, at this racetrack. In that braking zone in particular, it's very difficult to get that car back onto the racing surface and turned in for that second corner. Oftentimes, you put 2 wheels off in the dirt there on the run between turns 1 and 2. And you just basically end up in the runoff, similar to what we saw just a couple of laps ago from Justin Tipton. That was very, very well recovered there by that number 17.
And that is one of the most difficult aspects of this track. There's really not much runoff area in comparison to the big Grand Prix circuits that we saw during the first half of the season. So up in here, you really have to stay on the tarmac. The slightest mistake that you make, you put 2 wheels on the dirt, on the grass, it's gonna be pretty much race over.
So we reached 25% race distance already. 5 laps down, 15 to go here from Oran Park. We see Adecobo Lopez, a bit of a slipstream into corner number 1. Nowhere near close enough to get it done, though. Fight for 4th, though, is on. As Francois Bullion is going to pick up a spot from Andrew Picario. Picario tries to slot down the inside in turn number 2, but no play to be had there, so he's going to have to just settle for that 5th spot for now. Justin Tipton still sitting behind them. He was 3/10 quicker than Picario that last time through, but he's a 10th off of Bullion, so maybe a little pace in that number 4 machine. The question's going to be, though, if he's that much quicker than Picario, how quickly can he get that job done? Because we know making passes here, Alvin, is very, very difficult.
Very difficult indeed, but these guys here in P4 all the way to P6, they are definitely making those moves. They are getting those moves to stick right now. Francois Bullion getting P4 right now. Now, is he able to pick up the pace just that bit more that he needs to catch up the top 3? Well, we will have to see.
So top 3 work themselves now back onto the front straightaway, and they're a little bit more tucked up than they were earlier, a lot more bunched together as they work themselves down the front straightaway. And Josh Anderson's going to go somewhat defensive because of this. Defends that inside line, and Adecobo Lopez harassing the mirrors on that number 3 machine. He's actually going to work a very, very wide entrance to that first corner, and it's almost able to slide it down the inside, but Anderson misses the apex. This might be one of the few opportunities Lopez gets to make this move on the run down into the third corner. He has to do it the long way around, though, and he's not going to get to the apex as that number 1 machine, Iberica Racing Team driver of Adecobo Lopez, so he's going to have to still settle for that 2nd spot. But I think that's going to put a lot of confidence in the mind of Adecobo Lopez here, Alvin, knowing that he can essentially show the nose on Josh Anderson if he gets a bit of a run, and he can potentially just intimidate that number 3 Australian driver right off the racetrack like we almost saw there in turn number 2.
And this is pretty much what Adecobo Lopez is trying to do, mind games. He knows that trying to get a pass here, it is definitely difficult. So now he's trying to show his nose here and there to Joshua Anderson, trying to get him into a mistake. He was able to lure Joshua into a mistake. We saw it on the last lap. Let's see if he can do it again.
Down the front straight they come once again. It's a good exit, though, for Anderson, and I don't think Lopez is going to have any play to make here as they work themselves into corner number 1. Lopez still working the slipstream, and no, nowhere near close enough. So everyone is going to be single file through turn 1 and into corner number 2, but Lopez closes up a lot on the brakes. I think that number 1 machine, Alvin, is a lot quicker than Anderson through that first sector. You look at the way that Lopez had to lock up there to not get into the back of that number 3 machine. I think if Ade can get a good run off turn 12, the final corner, I think he'll be able to make a move stick, because he just looks to be a couple tenths quicker than that number 3 car through turns number 1 and 2, and really that's a good place to be quicker than someone, considering it's really the only valid passing opportunity on track.
He definitely is, but let's not discount Greg's size, because he has been able to do a great job here trying keeping up with Joshua Anderson and Areca Lopez. And I gotta say, if Greg Size can perhaps capitalize on these two fighting, I wouldn't be surprised if Greg Size tries to also make a move for the lead as well.
Greg's someone we've seen more often than not be patient here in these races. He usually waits until really, really late to make his move, and you see him already pulling out of the draft. Areca Lopez does the same, maybe thinking about those engine temperatures. We've seen historically these Skip Barber cars really struggle with the slipstream and the temps, and it's not uncommon to see people blow up. That said, the fight's on for P number 5. They're side by side in that 4th, 5th, 6th battle, and I think they're going to stay pretty much in the order they run. Spolian, Tipton, and Precario there in 4th, 5th, and 6th. But this race thus far has been a race of, let's say, trios and quartets. You have the top 3 trio of Anderson, Lopez, and Seitz. Then you get a few seconds back, another trio, Bolian, Precario, and Tipton. A little bit further back, you get another trio that's, well, whatever the EO word is for 7, it's quickly becoming that. It's currently McCormick, Hervias, and Cabanillas, whose name I have said differently every single time and pronounced it. And then you get a quartet of Montini, Capenga, Tron, and Loyarte. That rounds out the top 13. Then the last couple cars running somewhat competitively are El Leroy Coppage and Edward Torres. That rounds out your top 15 here. Carl Dronke still pulling last, but he is 51 seconds off the pace. And looking back out front here, Alvin, Josh Anderson seems to stretch a little bit of a gap here over Lopez, and now that number 3 machine has breathing room he didn't have before. Seitz might just start taking the fight to Lopez here, as they're going to be halfway next time by.
We may see a battle here for P2 really soon, as Josh Anderson definitely got a way better run than Areca Lopez. That is pretty surprising, considering the pace that Areca Lopez has shown throughout the season so far. But it could also be Areca Lopez trying to give himself some breathing room perhaps, and trying to make Joshua just relax just that little bit, that he goes way too comfortable, makes a mistake, and that's when Areca Lopez will go for his chance.
0.2 of a second was the pace difference last time through for Josh Anderson compared to Areca Lopez, and Addy makes a little bit mistake here about midway through the lap, and they get ready to start coming down the hill somewhat through this left-hander at turn number 9 and then in towards to the 10 and 11 chicane, and Addy not looking his picture-perfect self that we're used to seeing in these Wednesday night Skip Barber races through corner number 12 for the 10th time, and this is going to bring us half distance here. This is a corner that really makes a difference, and I think Addy's roughly even this time, if not maybe a slight advantage towards Anderson. And looking at the lap times, again, Anderson stretches a couple tenths, so maybe a little bit of hometown advantage here for Josh Anderson, Alvin, because he's looking completely comfortable after that little mistake earlier on when we saw Lopez slot the nose up and the 3 machine basically dive out of the way through turn 2. He now looks much more comfortable and is slowly extending his lead.
And that is really surprising, considering the pace that Areca Lopez has shown. But we also have to consider that, like you just pointed out, Randy, hometown, and that is pretty much, this is all about Joshua Anderson for him, being the local driver here today. So maybe a little bit of local knowledge trying to showing up for Joshua Anderson, even though this track doesn't exist anymore.
So looking a little bit deeper down the field, we do indeed have one big gaggle of cars now, I would say. We said there's about a trio and a quartet earlier, and it's broken off down into a pack of 6 cars. So Tyler Hervias leads this train from Daniel Cabanillas. Then you got Federico Montini, Christian Capenga, who just had a little bit of an excursion, but gets it back on the black stuff pretty much okay. Tuan Tron, followed by Lucas Loyarte here in the mid-pack. This represents P number 7 through P number 12 out there on the racetrack, and lurking a little bit further back, you still have Leroy Coppage and Edward Torres. Mike McCormick is back there as well. So this might get really, really hot here in the last handful of laps as Montini, Campanga, they're going to fight down into corner number 1 side by side. The number 7 machine looks up the inside, but the 17 of Federico slams that door shut, and Campanga very wisely gets out of it, but the 17 machine all sorts of side away at the apex, but he has the inside run for turn number 3. Federico very, very aggressive there, shutting that door into corner number 1, Alvin.
Shutting the door indeed, but that also has allowed 2 on Tron to close that gap here to Des fight as well, and 2 on Tron really looking really racy. He wants to get as many positions as he can, and he won't rest until he gets those positions. Now, trying to look a little bit further up on the field. Francois Boulian, the last lap, he was able to get really close to Andrew Procario, but it really wasn't enough to get the run to get P4. And that battle for the lead, well, it kind of looks like Areco Lopez was able to close the gap just a little bit more.
Confirmation of the lap time here in a moment. It's Josh Anderson with a 13.8 with a 13.4 for Adecobo Lopez. So about 3.5 tenths is what Adecobo Lopez able to reel in that last time through, and that's a huge margin to make up considering Josh Anderson had just spent the last handful of laps, Alvin, eking that gap out by 1/10 here, 2/10 there. Adecobo Lopez in one single lap brings that gap right back down. And I think the thing to keep in mind is that even though that front straightaway isn't very long, you know, you only need about a 6 to 7 tenth or so advantage to really break the slipstream over the drivers behind you. Adecobo Lopez closing that up the way he did might just have enough slipstream here that every single time they get to that front straightaway, he might be able to race any gains Josh Anderson may have made on him. So if Anderson doesn't respond right now, which he seems to be doing so, it seems that that gap's starting to stretch back out already. We might see Lopez be able to put up a fight here as they're coming up on the last handful of laps. You're going to be 7 to go at the line.
And that is what Joshua Anderson needs right now. He knows that he will not be able to make it on this race because Areco Lopez is close enough that he can benefit from the slipstream. So Joshua Anderson, it is very important for him. He has to make it work on the rest of the track, which is kind of hard as well because that is pretty much where Areco Lopez also shines on the twisty bit. So Joshua Anderson really has his work cut out. But then again, he is in the lead as of now, and Areco Lopez has not been able to get a good run on Joshua Anderson since the drop of the green flag.
Change of position for Pete number 5. Justin Tipton into the first corner, gets a good run out of turn number 12 and slots up the inside of Francois Boulian using that slipstream. And he now puts himself back inside the top 5. Andrew Procario will be his next target. Also keeping an eye on the Anderson and Lopez fight. The last time through, 0.2 of a second in favor of Anderson. So we talked about the fact that Lopez reeled that gap back in. Josh Anderson, Alvin, just casted that lap back out. He immediately responded. May have been a slight mistake on that single lap, but regardless, he responded. But I will say, it looks like Lopez is firing back, and that gap, it's either stabilized, if not come down slightly in favor of that light blue, white, and black Iberca Racing Team car.
I think definitely Areco Lopez, this is pretty much all about mind games. He knows that perhaps he is faster, but he doesn't want to show his hand yet. There are still 4 laps to go, so there's still plenty of racing to go in here, and I think he got the run that he was looking for. Well, no, going into turn number 1, he's still running in P2, but definitely trying to get as close as he can to Joshua Anderson. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 2 laps, Areco Lopez definitely goes for it.
He closed up on the run into turn number 3 as well, tucked right under the rear wing of Josh Anderson. But I think from about turn 3 to about turn 10, turn 11, this is where this number 3 machine has been strong. And keeping an eye on this gap, it just actually looks like the number 1 machine of Lopez done a good job to respond, and as if anything, maybe closing or at the very least keeping that gap stagnant here as they run through about midway point of the lap right now. Quick right, quick left. Very technical chicane style corner right there. Then you get an awkward off-camber 90-degree left-hander. And then on the run into 10 and 11, that flat out right-left chicane. That these cars are going to be pretty easy, but the big V and supercars that used to run here used to be very, very tricky. So through the final corner here at turn number 12, down the front straightaway, Lopez did a phenomenal job to close this gap back down. What is his lap time going to be as Anderson shuts the door on the inside once again? It's another 2/10 went the way of Lopez. They run into corner number 1. 5 laps to go this time by as Tron seems to be exiting pit lane, Alvin, so something happened a little bit deeper down the order that we missed.
Yeah, definitely something happened to Tron. Really unfortunate for him, but you know, now keeping close, trying to keep an eye on this battle here for the lead. Definitely, Areco Lopez starting to turn up the pressure. We saw it on last lap. Joshua Anderson definitely had to take a very defensive line going into turn number 1, and I don't think that'll be the last attempt that we will see from Areco Lopez.
Now, we definitely will see Areco Lopez make another move at some point, but Josh Anderson, again, does a good job responding, keeping that gap ever constant, ever flowing. There's never a point where the gap remains the same lap on lap. That gap's either getting closer or getting larger every time through, and that makes it very difficult to make a move if you're that number 1 machine of Areco Lopez, because you don't have any consistency. It's hard to judge where you may or may not be quicker or maybe even worse than your competitor out in front of you. Greg Seitz, meanwhile, it's important to note, he's been consistently matching both the 2 cars out in front of him, but he's not been keen whatsoever to make a move. Areco Lopez pulls out of the slipstream down the front straightaway, getting some clean air into those radiators, getting that car a little bit cooled off, down into corner number 1 once again, and he closes that gap very, very well. He drives that car so hard through turn number 1 and 2, and here, Alvin, inside of 4 laps to go. Clock's ticking, I think, on Areco Lopez. He had an opportunity early on to potentially run away with this race. He's right now, I don't know if he has the speed to be able to get by that number 3 machine of Josh Anderson outside of a big dive bomb that would have to likely come on the braking zone into corner number 2.
And that'll be pretty much what he needs to do right now. But trying to get a look at other battles here on the field. It looks like that 3-car battle that we have from P4, from P6 has broken just a little bit. Franz Abuli, and looks like he has lost touch with Justin Tipton and Andrew Procario. So right now, the battle for P4 is just a 2-car battle.
It's important to note that Tipton's got himself back up into that 4th spot. He was at one point part of this lead fight. That little mistake down at turn number 1 really cost him, and now he finds himself running for 4th. If there's any big issue here out in front, he might just be close enough to snag a podium position. It's about a 9-second gap from your race leader to Justin Tipton, so it's going to have to be a really, really big incident between these guys. 3 laps to go, though, and anything can happen as they still run under the Yokohama Performance Tire Bridge, and Areco Lopez trying to keep that 3 of Josh Anderson honest. They both take slightly different lines through turn number 3. Lopez apexes and turns in a little bit sooner, whereas Anderson runs a much wider entry, get a good little short shoot on the run between corners number 3 and 4. And now they come up and over the top of the bridge. Lopez seems to be losing a little bit of ground right here, Alvin, which is definitely unfortunate because it's going to be 2 laps to go next time by. Lopez needs to make up the ground from somehow, some way, from here to the start-finish line. He has to be picture perfect next circuit around this racetrack.
That is pretty much what Areco Lopez needs to do right now. He looks like he is closing the gap just a little bit here and there, now coming here into turn number 12, but Greg Seitz also gets a good run on Areco Lopez coming here into turn number 12, but trying to look at what the gaps are coming in here into the start-finish line. It looks like Joshua Anderson was able to, well, it was pretty much virtually the same lap times for Areco Lopez and Joshua Anderson, although Greg Seitz was just a little bit faster.
Greg seemed keen to make a move on turn number 2 right there, though, but was not able to do so. 2 laps to go, and watch for that red and gray number 2 machine with the green highlights to maybe make his move. He sat patiently in 3rd the entire time throughout this race, but it's important to note that if Greg Seitz, Alvin, tries to fight with Areco Lopez, there's a very good chance that he will throw away both his and Ade's chances away from winning this race and might just hand it to Josh Anderson.
And that is pretty much the question here. How much Areco Lopez and Greg Seitz they are willing to risk. We have seen Joshua Anderson pretty much dominate the race from start to finish. Yeah, he lost the lead on lap number 1, but he was just able to regain it, and he has been pretty much all the way to the front. So now, with that said, well, Randy, we are approaching turn number 12, and this is the final lap.
One more lap to go around this 1.6 mile racetrack. 12 corners remain, and Adekova Lopez does not get a good exit onto the front straightaway, and turn number 1 will not be that good of a passing opportunity for him. That said, is he able to break late enough to throw a move down? He closes the gap, but no, he's not going to be able to slot it up the inside. Through turn number 2, he remains close, tucked under the rear wing of Josh Anderson as they run under the Yokohama Bridge and into the third corner once again. Lopez continues to harass the mirrors of the Australian who currently leads this race. Greg Seitz matching every single step that the Iberican makes though in front of him. Up now through the middle part of the racetrack, up and over the bridge once again. Down on the run into corners number 7 and 8. One machine of Lopez needs to make up ground somehow, some way. The only passing opportunity left is going to be the braking zone into turn 12. How will he be able to make that work? It's going to be such an awkward place to do it, but he has a good run through 9. He might just be able to pull this off through 10 and 11, and this is the one chance he has, but no, he's not close enough, and Anderson shuts the door regardless through 12 for the final time, and back up the hill, the number 1 machine of Lopez uses the slipstream, but it's not going to be enough, and the number 3 of Josh Anderson is going to upset Adekova Lopez here at Oran Park today in round number 7. Looking further down the order, Precario still fights off Justin Tipton. Precario's did a fantastic job to pick up P number 4, and he's got that job done. Everyone else pretty much single file here, but we have one more close fight as they work themselves onto the front straightaway. This is Federico Montini and Lucas Loyarte, and Montini, he's going to hold that spot as they come across the line.
Definitely, this was a fantastic race. We saw that just because you get pole position, that doesn't mean you are guaranteed a race win. Adekova Lopez surprised Joshua Anderson at the drop of the green flag, but Joshua Anderson was able to fight back, and he got the race win here today.
Well, with that, we're going to go down your post-race results here live from Oran Park. Josh Anderson with a big win here today. Takes it over Adekova Lopez, but I don't think Ade's going to be too brokenhearted about that. 400 or so point advantage for him currently in the standings. Greg Seitz sits 3rd, Andrew Precario 4th, and Justin Tipton will round out the top 5 after that little mistake. I think if you're Justin Tipton, you have to be thinking to yourself, what could have been? Francois Bollier will finish 6th with Tyler Hervias 7th, Daniel Cabanales 8th, 9th is Federico Montini, and Lucas Loyarte round out the top 10. El Leroy Coppage finishes 11th, Edward Torres 12th, Mike McCormick 13th, Christian Capenga 14th, Carl Dronke 15th, Tuan Tron 16th, and Gordon Ramsay, after the commentator's curse, will finish in the 17th spot. Thank you for joining us here for the first round of our Wednesday race nights. Next week, the Skip Barber Championship, always so fierce, always so competitive, will be rolling down to Brands Hatch, the second of the tight, twisty circuits in this second half of the schedule. Like we said, dominated by the short club-style circuits in this second stretch of the season. Goes Brands Hatch, then we go to the Yokohama. That's another big GP track. Then we have Snetterton and Olton Park. We're on the Island Historic layout at Olton Park, and then we'll be finishing the season off back at another big track at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. But for everyone here at RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live, thank you for joining us. Be sure to tune in next week for more Skip Barber action. And if you're not done watching iRacing content just yet, well, be sure to keep an eye out here in just a moment as we're going to bring up the 10th and final round of the regular season for the Raven Graphics and eSpeed Contender Series. There's still one chase spot left. Join us in a couple moments' time for the Fright Night 200 from the Texas Motor Speedway. Be there.